Dear friends, welcome to the next session for Information Security Fundamentals. So in today's session, we will be looking at various cryptographic techniques. So let us get started. So cryptographic techniques are those techniques which are developed to provide data security and to ensure that the data is transferred between the communication parties are confidential, not modified by authorized party, or to prevent hackers from accessing and using the information. They all these techniques takes care that the CIA triad of the information security paradigm is maintained throughout any type of communication which might be involving various senders and receivers across the network. Caesar cipher, monoalphabetic ciphers, homophonic substitution cipher, polyalphabetic cipher, Playfair cipher, railfence, one-time ped, Hill ciphers are some of the examples of cryptographic techniques. However, they can be broadly classified into various categories. We have to ensure that whenever we are implementing any of these algorithms, it strictly pertains to the goal of the CIA, which is maintaining confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data at any point of time during the communication. So, to begin with the various cryptography techniques, the first one is one of the primitive type of cryptography, which is known as simple codes, or like we discussed in our previous session, hieroglyphs. So this category is any way of writing a message by sight that it is difficult for anyone else to read, that involves writing stuff in another alphabet. And here we can see, in this diagram we can see Icelandic runes and IPA, as well as another niche built alphabet such as Deseret alphabet. So we use entirely different sets of alphabets in order to represent the message that we are going to send. It might include the early writings by various civilizations, or entirely a different set of alphabet which is designed for communication between two parties. We can also use language to code, and we have looked into the creation of created language such as Elvish and Esperanto as of now. So these are various languages which are used in order to establish communication. Similarly, some of the unknown languages can also be used in order to establish communication or send messages between two parties. Chester Nash and Judith Sears Avila's book Code Talker is a book that explains how the Navajo language has been used as a code in Second World War and never was cracked into extremely intense conditions. So Navajo was a language which was used in order to communicate between the different military bases during the Second World War, and it was extremely difficult to crack because that language was known by a very few people around the country. So people specialized in that language were required to be present in that particular base while the message is being decoded. So it is a very simple way of representing a message. However, it is that way of representation in which the people cannot easily crack it, maybe due to the lack of knowledge regarding that particular area, or maybe using entirely different set of alphabets and symbols in order to represent the messages, which has no logic but uh, or no mathematical formulas associated with it, but we have a entirely different set of language or symbols, and only who can understand that particular language is capable of decoding it. If Navajo had no words for particular notion, the code speakers chose a term instead. So suppose there were some words which cannot be represented in Navajo, so the code speakers chose some other words in order to represent those particular words which were not in the Navajo language. So The Navajo word for hummingbird, for example, became a fighter plane. So in order to represent fighter plane, they used hummingbird, and um, to represent Germany, or they used to call Germany as Iron Hat. So these were some of the very simple ways of representing the messages that were exchanged between these military bases, and it strictly stuck to those areas of languages, or those areas of representations which were not known to all, and only a very few people in the world or in the country could actually understand that particular language. The next evolved cryptography technique is the substitution cipher, and in this type of code, each letter is equivalent to the another. So if I have a 5-letter word, let's say A, B, C, D, E, I might say A is represented as C, B is represented as E, C is represented as B, D is represented as D, and E is represented as A. So this is actually just, we are substituting the value or substituting the letter that we are going to represent by some other letter or by some other alphabet. So this message is then encoded by replacing each letter with its value. So A will always become C in the message. And decoding this message just requires reversing the key where C becomes A. So though we can, it is a simple way of representation or simple way of encryption, the decryption is also easier because it can easily be decrypted by reversing the key. Like it is said, C, if we identify it as C, we just have to represent it as A for decryption. So this kind of code is extremely easy to crack, and it can be solved with time by hand like a puzzle, starting with guessing letters for shorter words. So when we are talking about this, we have to understand that the hackers or the people who are behind decryption of these algorithms are constantly at work, and it is extremely easy to solve all this using a computer, because using frequency analysis of different letters is a very common technique in order to decrypt such substitution ciphers. For example, if we look at the English language, in English E is far more common than any other letter. So if the message is very long, that means it has a lot of letters which are E, which are written with the alphabet E. So whatever letter or whichever letter has the greatest frequency, we can directly replace it by E. Similarly, we have to identify or the second most frequent letter which is used in that particular language or in English, and then we have to represent it using the similar concept of frequency analysis and replace them with the next most frequently occurring letter of the language. So in that kind, we can easily in that way we can easily solve that particular substitution cipher, and we will be easily able to decrypt the language which is being sent across. So talking about this substitution ciphers, when we are using substitution ciphers, we have to be careful that we are not sending very long messages. So in case of this, long messages should be avoided, because in shorter messages we do not understand or we will not be able to identify which is the most frequently occurring letter for one word or two words. However, as compared to other things, if the sentence is very long, let us consider a sentence which has around 10 words or 15 words. So within 10 words or 15 words, the most frequently occurring letter could easily be identified, followed by the next frequently occurring letter, and then we can easily decode the substitution cipher. So here we have to understand that long messages is not a very healthy option for using substitution ciphers. So moving ahead, we have book ciphers. So this cryptography technique relies on both the writer and the recipient having exact copies of the book or some other written material. So the person writing the message can indicate the page, the line, and the number of character in the line they are referencing for each letter in their message. So maybe a single letter could look like 35, 7 and 18. So 35 will be the page number, 7 would be the line number, and 18 would be the letter number. So this is more easier, more difficult in order to represent and decrypt, because the code breaker does not know which book was used initially, and even if he identifies the book, it will be difficult for him to go and identify each and every letter which is associated with the message, because though it is possible to do that, but it will take a longer period of time, and by that time the countermeasures could easily be taken. So this code can be hard to crack because there may be no repetition in the coded message at all. The first time, if you code the letter E, you may take it from a different place in the book than the second time. So substitution, when you look at substitution ciphers, A or D is always replaced by E. Here, however, D can be from a separate page and a separate line, whereas another D can be from page number 2 and maybe let's say line number 2 is here, line number 5. So each representation for the same letter will be taken from different positions, and it involves two steps. The decryption involves two steps. First is identifying the book, and the second one is the letters. So this is very, very important because this will take a lot of time and sometimes it might not give the accurate result. So book ciphers are very much used in various cryptography techniques. Next, we will talk about steganography or hidden messages. So steganography is a technique which facilitates hiring of a message that is to be kept secret inside other messages. Earlier, people used methods to hide messages such as invisible ink, minute variations, etc. But in age of technology, steganography is a technique to conceal data that can be the file, message, image, etc. inside other files, images, or messages. And to crack these hidden messages, they first needs to be found out. They can be written, they can be hidden in obvious or very unexpected place, and the hidden message can also be encoded in other ways, making it difficult to decipher even if it is found. So whatever be the message, so that message is basically encrypted in a different form. Maybe it might be encrypted in some image and then it is sent to the receiver. So once the receiver receives it, it already has the key to decrypt this message and it will read the message. However, the hackers in between will not be able to identify what type of message it is taking or what type of message it has been sent, because these messages are hidden and it is hidden in unexpected places, which makes it more difficult to decipher. Suppose in the slide itself, this portion can contain a hidden message, and though we can see it that it is represented in a different way, maybe there is a letter which is known as techniques continued. So even if it is a different representation, we can still send messages encrypted in this particular area of the slide or area of an image. So that is steganography, where we are sending images or we are sending different types of messages or files hidden in some other images or some invisible links or minute variations or in the form of some other representations. So steganography is basically storing all types of messages and sending them but in a hidden format. Next, we will talk about symmetric encryption. It is done when both the sender and the receiver of the message have the same key, which is used to encrypt and decrypt the message. So basically, substitution ciphers are technically symmetric encryption, but modern symmetric encryption can be much more complicated. So there is a stream of symbols, at least as long as the message that is being encrypted can be used to encode and decode the message, and it is used when we want to send extremely simple messages or highly non-confidential, not non-confidential exactly, we want to send certain messages which are not of high priority. So because it is easy to decrypt, once we understand that there is a key involved, so we have to understand that this key will definitely solve the situation, or this key will definitely solve the or identify the various messages that are being sent. So if we look at this image, there is an original text, and this original text is basically encrypted using a public key, and this key will be, after it is encrypted using the public key, it shows some scrambled data. So let us say original message is hello, so we are using a key to encrypt it. So maybe this hello is represented in the form of P Q R R S. So let us say we are using this key, and after using this key the representation goes to PQRRS. So this is known as the scrambled data, and after this scrambled data is sent to the receiver has the same key, though it is known as the private key for the receiver. So the receiver has the same key in order to decrypt this particular message, and using this key he can see the original text. So the public key is basically shared with the receiver as his private key to decrypt it. So this is known as symmetric encryption, and we use a key in order to encrypt and decrypt the message. And however, this is a very complicated use of cryptography, but it becomes easier to decrypt if the key is known. So once that key is compromised, we have to understand that our system might be compromised as well. So the next is asymmetric encryption. This involves using of a private key and public key. So initially in symmetric we had the same key for encryption and decryption. Here we have a public key and a private key. The other main type of encryption is the asymmetric encryption, where each person has a private key and a public key. If I want to write a message to John, I would look up to John's public key and use it to encode my message, and then he would use his private key to decipher it. So one theoretical problem with asymmetric encryption is that public key is public. A hacker could pretend to have the public key of someone, disperse it, and then intercept the messages encoded with the key they provide in order to decipher them. So there needs to be a way to verify that public keys are real and are connected to actual recipient of the message. Because asymmetric encryption is much more complex and takes more time and computing power than symmetric encryption, it will commonly be used only to encrypt the symmetric key that is used for the rest of the conversation. So here we are using two different types of keys. One is the private key and the other is the public key. So what happens is the public key of the receiver is used in order to encrypt the message, and the receiver will use the private key of itself in order to decrypt it. Now the problem is the public key is public for everyone. So if I'm offered the public key of the receiver and my receiver is actually a hacker, he might send me his public key saying it that it is the public key of the receiver, and he will take the message and decrypt it using his own private key. So it is extremely important for us to prevent it so that our message do not reach to the unauthorized person. And this can be achieved by encrypting the symmetric key which will be used for the conversation. So we have to encrypt the key as well. So there are various algorithms available for this. We will do it in our subsequent sessions. So the final commonly used cryptographic technique is hashing, where the data is converted to a form like in a unique string. Regardless of size or type, any data can be hashed using a hashing algorithm. So hashing algorithms are those algorithms which is related to conversion of the data into a unique string, and it takes data of random length and converts it into a fixed hashed value. So it is different from other encryption methods because in hashing, encryption cannot be reversed. That is it cannot be decrypted using keys. So we do not have any type of keys associated with it. MD5, SHA1, SHA256 are widely used hashing algorithms. We simply use algorithms in order to convert it into certain representations or certain strings. So there is no question of compromising with the getting compromised with the keys. But however, if the logic of the algorithm is cracked, the system will be cracked. Overall, if we look into entire cryptography, it is a very interesting domain related to information security. However, no system is 100% secure. These are only some techniques which we can use in order to prevent various attacks that our system might be facing. So this is all for today. Thank you.